Hey everybody, Mind's Eye Visual Guitar Method here, back in action. After a long hiatus here, no time to explain because the theme of this lesson is I want to get you into this majorly, one of the probably best lessons I could ever teach you, because this is going to have total impact. Total freedom over a 2-5-1 progression. You can use this concept to figure out your own way through almost any chord progression. Having your being able that the old thing they say where you're hearing your lines, hearing the progression, hearing the chord changes when you play, and I've never been able to do that until now. There's one simple trick. I learned that from another teacher recently, so I'll post that lesson in the description below so you can check it out. It was basically the number one thing I needed to hear to get it to finally click. So hearing a 2-5-1, a little not as jazzy as I would like, but definitely heard some of the changes through there. So anyways, let's just get on to what it is without any music theory, and that's going to be the craziest thing about this. So I can go on and on about how and why this might work, but like when you do learn it through ways of music theory, because all this stuff I'll do a second lesson to keep this one short, so people are really attracted to short lessons with a lot of impact. I'll do another lesson where I explain all the music theory, but you know what I found out that happens is like everything can be theorized. Like, well, this is this came from this person, and you know, this is an arpeggio, or this is from this scale. So that made me always, whenever I learned everybody's jazz lesson where it's this arpeggio, this scale, because that's what I thought it was. So that's what I was always looking up. And so they'll theorize it and give you this information. But it always got me to think, like, okay, scale, arpeggio, it's this, it's over here. It's, the map is over here. And I'm in my head, and I'm not like here. Then I don't have the ability to hear what I'm doing, to just play through the progression and have some fun and make a cool line and experiment and feel freedom in my playing. That was always this, like, where does that happen? How do these guys get there? And so I feel like I found the way, and I've realized it was all like, you know, outside of that music theory. It's good to know as a background. Like, for example, if you don't know any music theory, this is what it might sound like if you just try to be jazzy over a 2-5-1. No. Right? So don't kill your ears with too much more of that. So let's get it. So you can't just, if you can't just do it without music theory, then you must need music theory. But no, here's how we're going to do this today. I'm going to give you a playground, a framework for each chord. Then it's basically tell you two tricks. And then eventually you'll be able to leave these frameworks except for the very last one, which is part of the trick. And you'll be able to really get free and do what Barry Harris said, where you can just play the 5 over of a 2-5-1, the 2 chord, the 5 chord, the 1 chord is what we're talking about. He says, oh, you can just play everything for the 5 chord until the 2 chord, and you can do that. You could do the Pat Martino way and cater to the 2 chord over the whole progression, or over the 2 and the 5 until you get to the C. And you can actually even almost play anything or until you get to the 1 chord to make it. That's really the trick that I found. So we'll get to the trick later. Let me show you these, what I'm going to call these 2 playgrounds, and or basically 3 playgrounds, 1 for each chord, and we'll go. So in order to learn these playgrounds, there it is right there, that's right on the screen there. The first one is just going to be this, over the D minor. Speaking of why D minor, we're in the key of C, so we're going the 2 chord in the key of C, C, 1, D, 2, 2 minor, D minor, to G, 7, to C, major 7. Dominant 7 is what we mean for the G, but you don't even know if you're like, oh, I don't know those chords. It doesn't matter. You won't need to know them that much today. But that is the background framework that you should know. Let me tangent really quick here and say there was I think it was one of the Charlies. I know it was Charlie Parker. One of them said something about like, yeah, your music theory is instrumental, your scales and everything, but you learn that, but then you forget it and just you can blow. I think he was a horn player, and so I always thought with that, oh boy, music. Learn the theory, but how are you going to let the theory go? You got to know that stuff. It's always got to be in your mind, and that was a mistake I was making that was always holding me back. So, what we got here is just play those notes. Don't even worry about what they are, but if you have to know today, because sometimes people are like thinking, oh, if I don't know the theory, I won't be able to know how to break the rules. So it's an F7 arpeggio, but who cares? Doesn't really matter. Like, because then you'll go, well, why does that work over D? How am I going to know when I change keys? How am I going to know? Actually, if you're playing in a different key, here we are. If we got our D minor chord, which is starting at the 10th fret here. Well, let's put it down. So our 2 chord was on B flat. Then our shape here is a whole step up. You can see we're starting on the E note instead of the D, which is the 9 of this chord. But hey, that's getting into theory, and we're saying we don't need to know that. So we're gonna play that over the 1. Play something, mess around with this it gives you a little something to do, which isn't totally exactly the chord tones, but actually there are a couple chord tones in there, except that is giving you a +1 of the, well, don't even worry what I just said there, +1. It's real easy to get into the theory of all this, but I'm just showing you this, the playgrounds. So what this is all about is where we're going as soon as the G chord hits. There's a special note. It's these gray notes. It makes this little, if you can unvisualize these blue notes now and just visualize the gray notes, you notice it makes like a sideways cross. You've heard that sound before if you've messed around with some jazz practice, some 2-5-1. So you can hear that's all related. These is just I'm arpeggiating that actual chord shape here. This. Anyway, so that's our little, but we're only just going to concentrate on these 4 notes. We can get a lot of mileage just out of that shape. And then I'm going to show you how you can do this all over the neck, because this particular shape, just like that chord, if you don't know the secret of that diminished chord, how it's the same chord, just inverted 4 times up the neck there until you repeat. This cross shape is identical all the way down the neck, so this makes this like super easy. This is totally awesome. You just basically have to know where your C arpeggio is, and that's theory. We'll talk about that later. So what we want to try to do in the beginning, you'll have more freedom later because you want to start with this because you'll hear yourself inside the chord of the 2 chord that starts out. You'll hear yourself kind of messing around inside the D minor. Now, you don't want to play these gray notes, therefore, until that first beat of the 2 chord, or the second chord of the progression there, which is the 5 chord of the scale, which is the G7 chord. So you got all these numbers getting thrown at you. Starts to be theory, and if you don't know all those things, it gets kind of like, wait, what did you say? A 9 chord? 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? So just don't worry about it. It's the next chord in the progression. It's 2, 5, 1, and in this case, D, G, C. I kind of got to always explain these. There's some people that are like, yeah, I know this, but remember, there's always people that are totally brand new and just need someone to spell this out as good, as clear as they can. So we don't want to get to these gray notes until the beat of that chord starts. The reason being is like, let's think about this like an emotional analogy here of like telling a joke. And it's like giving away the punchline of a joke before the punchline. If you play the chord tones of the next chord before it happens, you still can. But if you save your special, especially this note is actually a special note that is a real strong flavor over the second chord in the progression here. And so it does not work well over the 1 chord or the first chord of the progression or the last chord of the progression. So you do want to save this until then. It would be like if you were telling a joke and you got to the punchline early, then the joke isn't as funny. So it doesn't have that emotional kick to it, but you can get that, elicit that emotional response if you basically play, delay the punchline until the right time. So that's what we're doing here. And then with that, I'm going to give away the big secret of this here. When we get to this chord and we're noodling on this chord and we're going to we're getting to that last chord of the progression, the biggest deal of this whole thing is that you just nail a chord tone of the final chord on beat 1. You can do that from the first chord to the second chord, but I found that it's not that important. And the most important one is the last one. And if you get really good at this, you can even sort of forget that too, as long as you'll finally get inside that chord. It's kind of like the more everything beyond tapping a chord tone is kind of like outside playing. So the more outside you go, and if some of these notes are not even in the scale, that's really outside. And the more outside you go, the more inside you want to be on the very last chord, I found. My own advice. And then if you've been a little inside the whole time, you can maybe delay or work a little bit into the final chord tones a little bit after the beat. But for a beginner, just simply, very simply, work on that beat, number 1 beat of the very last chord. Now, speaking of beats, let's look down here real quick. You do want to get good at this. So basically, this 1, 2, 3, 4 is your beat. And in rock, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. But in jazz, it's and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. So you want to get used to that swing feel, and you can go and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. Those are, you can mix and match, and you do want to mix and match these to get a couple of extra. These are great places to put your passing tones, and especially this beat and getting to the next chord are great for chord tones. But not too much to worry about there. But then this one is important too. It's like a pickup, so you can be like, see, I was just working an odd note just basically one note away from our shape here, just to step in on that lead-in beat, is also a great simple jazzy trick that can kick the jazz up a notch. So here we are with our shape. We're going to use this as a... You don't have to go... You want to try to mix and match that. Now you can play this one too. This is sort of revealing the punchline, but this is this is the root note of the this is the one of the first chord in the progression. It's our root note, so that is so notice that, like, when I went, I kind of lost it there because I chose a lot of outside notes. So then I went to nail the 5 and the 1. You'll learn where all those notes are after you get used to fooling around with this playground, and it gets fun to go practice over this 2-5-1 backing track. So our backing track here that we're using is very easy to find. If you just, I think it's the first one that comes up if you search 2-5-1 backing track. And if I'm really cool, I'll put the link in the description below so you can use the same one we're practicing over, but you don't have to. So this is our 2 chord here. This is the gray notes here. Are now, once we get to the 5 chord, this is what we're thinking. And then, but in the back of our mind, we've got these gray notes as don't necessarily hit these. You sort of can. They don't sound too bad, but this is the punchline that you're getting to. And you'll notice that you kind of want to think that whatever note you're on in the progression, you want to be on one of these. The D is going to kind of be a harder cell to get back to one of these. You might want to go up as you go. But you'll be better. But you'd be better off taking any of these routes here, the half step into a chord tone. And all you got to do, if you're up at this note of the cross, our orange shape is the cross. So if you're at this note at the top here, I'm sorry I'm off screen. I'm always off screen here. I don't get so engrossed in looking at my diagrams here. But anyways, resolve. 5 chord, resolve. 5 chord, resolve. Alright, so let's try this out. And then when we get to the 1 chord, this is the most important. You want to nail one of these tones on that 1 beat. This is what we're going to do here. So we're going to go... And then you want to try to play. You also don't want to stop as soon as you resolve there. You want to play through. So notice like this. Also, when the one lick I played there, I didn't like. That's why I played another one with using this total outside note to get that jazz sound. Because when I played this right here, it was in the scale. And it doesn't sound too jazzy, but this does. If I was playing this. So, you'll just come up with all these ways to get through this business here. So, I'm going to play it and move the pages around here so we can see the, I'd be thinking this. By the way, here's how this one, you want to get used to how this shape will resolve or basically transition well with these notes. Will be if you find yourself at the end of your whatever you did, there's basically the last note I've got. I could go to get it right into my next shape. You want to choose a close note. You don't have to. But you got the. It'll sound great at first, and then as you want to really branch out and get jazzy, you can experiment with different ways. So let's go here. So just jam. Little late on the beat. Little late on the beat there. You can see how you can almost play anything as long as you go. As long as you nail that, there's your secret. Just nail the beat one and then play through it too. I was stopping on it. Learn to play on the beat and know where your 1, your 5, 1, and know where your 3 is. So and that was all from this shape. Here's what I was just playing. Your 1, your 1, your 3, your 5, 1, 3, 5. So for a tiny bit of theory here, this is a special note right here. This orange one is kind of what kicks this shape into gear for the 5 chord, because that's not in the scale. But using this shape here, we've got the B. You've heard about using the B diminished arpeggio. You don't even got to think about it. This shape contains it and gives you this fancy note that has a theoretical way that it works over the progression, but I'm not going to get into that. Let me just show you one more thing really quick, then I'll get into how that works a little bit. I'll show you kind of another trick here that involves can get you kind of something about comping. Since I'm making this lesson, it's going pretty good and somewhat quick. So look at this cross here. I've added some notes to this to show you something else. But the point was that you can have this shape. It connects to itself. This is the connector. Every note always has 2 basically unplayed notes in between the shapes. And there's basically 4 of them. Let's start here. If you can, and where we're starting, like, is that typical G jazz grip. Was doing it to find all of those is take this top note here and move it up. 1, 2, 3. Do you see the cursor there? It's in the yellow. 1, 2, 3. Now if I wanted to play a little extra, all I have to do is copy this this pattern of notes right here up above. So it's basically cool, right? So, yeah, there's that. There's all of those. So now, and these are just basically where do they come from? So here's a little theory. It's that diminished chord trick. It's all just coming from there. And because that works, I noticed something else one day. I had this little epiphany where I'm playing this, and realizing that, okay, sometimes you don't need the bass, so you can just take the guts of these chords on the 4, 3, and 2 strings and play those. And I thought, well, hey, this chord's neat. This makes a little D shape. And if this chord is related to this diminished chord, then that stands to reason that I should be able to just play this in comping. I should just be able to play this little D shape. You know, like when I say D shape, you know, the Stairway to Heaven chord. All right, so you know that shape. All the way up the fretboard. Then what happens is something magical happens. That note situates itself, or that chord situates itself right in between a bunch of D's, right in between a bunch of 2s and 1s, meaning the 2 chord and the 1 chord. So in other words, watch this. Here's the 2 chord. Now normally I'd be grabbing this other grip here, or something, thinking about that for, I want to know all my chord tones, but it's really just... Let's take it down. And you don't so much get one in between here, but here's your... You don't really get a D of any kind right in this area, but you do get one right here. This is kind of like a reverse image. Oops, I'm off screen again. So you got, basically, here's your D shape. Well, keep your 2, keep those notes the same, but we're going to put that middle note there that makes the triangle, we're going to put it behind it. So we got to switch our fingers around a bit. So you can see here that I'm on the 2nd fret of the G string, and that makes this larger shape here, a D minor chord. So we use that for our D minor, the regular D shape for our G7, and then this shape we can use for the C. You can hear it, you can just hear the progression there. And so that kind of shows you, I was kind of, something I said earlier where that special note, which is basically the note just after the root, that special note over the 5 chord. What is that note? Well, take a look at where we are. We're on the 13th fret. If you go down 1 fret, you're at G. That's the root note of our 5 chord. So we're playing the flat 2, right? A weird note, but it works. But why does it work? Well, it goes back to that trick I was just showing you. Like if we've got the D here, and we're gonna skip the root, throw that out, and just play these 3 notes. Then we're gonna play our D shape, which would be here. So you'll notice that there was a line that moved through when you played all those chords. That is a line cliche as far as I've been told. So that's where that comes from. That flat 9. That's why they say put a flat 9 on the basically the 2nd chord of the progression for the layman out there, which is the 5 chord of the key, which is the dominant 7th chord. It's another way you can talk about it that people understand. So that is what I'm going to leave you with today, is to not over-theorize it and keep the lesson really short and hopefully totally understandable to real layman's. Your basic trick is just nail a chord tone of C of this arpeggio shape anywhere on the fretboard for this progression. So what I'm going to try to show you here is I'm going to mix and match here. I'll play this to start with, but then I'm going to jump over to one of these shapes. I'll play it somewhere down the neck and see what I can come up with. Let's experiment. Here we go. So I liked some of that, and I didn't like some of it. But that's what you'll do. You'll notice that even if you don't like some of the stuff that you played, it's still relatively inside and like you got something going on with this chord progression now, with a lot of freedom over the neck, instead of learning like, well, this is Charlie Parker's lick and this is such and such lick, and then you learn that lick, and the assumption is that you could maybe like throw that into your progression or with 8,000 other licks that you know, but then you know a bunch of licks. You're thinking about pulling these little contrived licks out of places, and then you're always copying other people that made these licks famous. That's great. The way I look at it is, if you play something cool over a 2-5-1, just don't claim that you came up with it, because chances are there's been so many cats making 2-5-1s cool and professional and awesome. You've just played somebody's lick. Someone will be like, oh, that was Miles Davis lick. That was a John Coltrane, so it was a Wes Montgomery. So you're probably playing cool licks as it is anyways. And then when you do learn someone's cool lick, you can kind of see how it will, if you have to transpose it maybe back to C, you can see how it fits in to this concept that you learned today. So happy practicing with your 2-5-1s. I'm going to get out of here as fast as I can, except for telling you to, hey, click like, because you're like, hey, this just broke me free out of my 2-5-1 chains and all the theory I was trying to think about. Now I just learned how people can play this stuff without having to know a ton of like, well, this is the this and this is the that. I gave you some of the explanations in case you were wondering how this stuff could work, or where it was important to maybe know a little tidbit or two. But otherwise, so you can do this stuff with when you don't have to think about it. You've got freedom. So I'm going to leave you with that, and like and subscribe, first of all, if you haven't already subscribed. Then, do the comment thing down below. Tell me in the comments if this helped you, if this was like, hey, that's great. This tidbit about landing on the 1 of C, that's what did it for me. So if it did it for you, give it a thumbs up, and leave a comment telling me it worked out for you. All right, I appreciate you watching my channel and learning something new. Here we are on my journey, learning about 2-5-1s, and because that's kind of where I am on my journey. And remember, you can take this to do like now. Try when they have a minor 2-5-1. That ends on a minor chord. It starts with some different chords. You can use this technique, not exactly these same patterns, but you'll be able to figure out now how to nail the changes over those progressions, figuring out your own patterns. Come up with your little something or something that's related to the first chord, second chord, and third chord, and nail the third chord on beat 1. And you can almost play anything. It doesn't even have to matter in the beginning. That's why, by the way, Barry Harris could say, oh, you can just play the 5. Don't even worry about the 2 chord. Just play everything for the 5 chord, arpeggiate the 5 chord, do whatever his tricks over the 5 chord, and then get to the 1 chord. That's basically where that's coming from. Or like the Pat Martino trick, where he says, well, I just play over the 2 chord and just do the 2 chord, mess around until I get to the 1 chord. And if you play that, you'll hear it works. And with finally understanding it, because I was trying it, and I'm just trying to do these weird shapes coming out of odd chord shapes, and it sort of worked, but it never really clicked until I did this. Thanks again for watching. I'm going to leave it with that. We appreciate you. Have a great day.